Last week we studied Ephesians chapter 4 verse 25 and learned about speaking the truth with love. We learned that as people of the new creation, we are to stop speaking lies and start speaking the truth. Today we will look into the second aspect that Paul speaks about Christian life. In verses 26 and 27 of Ephesians chapter 4, Paul speaks about anger management. I will read verses 26 and 27. Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not make room for the devil. Handling anger is an important life skill. It is reported that 50% of Christians who seek counseling have problems dealing with anger. Unrestrained anger can be destructive because it has the potential to tear apart relationships, and it can ruin the joy and health of not only the person who gets angry but also others associated with that person. According to Paul, unrestrained anger can lead us to sin. Unreconciled anger can break relationships, and unresolved anger can make room for the devil to harm us. So we need to deal with anger. We cannot escape it by saying it is just another emotion. The question is, how to deal with anger? One of the popular myths about anger management is, if you are angry, just release it, ventilate it, empty yourself of anger, and you will feel better. The popular belief is that you have a certain amount of anger accumulated within you, and once you get it out, you will be healed of anger. Scream it out is the therapy that the world recommends for anger management. But the problem is that it doesn't work that way. Every time you get angry and you just scream it out, what happens? According to research, aggression always produces more aggression. So exploding our anger is of little help because it complicates the issue and makes us more angrier. It hurts people, and in the process we sin. The other way to manage our anger is to implode our anger. By imploding, I mean holding up anger within oneself. Imploding anger can also be disastrous because it creates pressure in our souls. Suppressing our anger can also affect our body and our mind. Both of these strategies are unbiblical. So, what does the Bible teach about anger management? Paul gives a three-step answer in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26 and 27. First, acknowledge that unrestrained anger is sin. Second, accept responsibility and take steps for timely reconciliation. And third, confess your anger to God and give no room for the devil. We will look into these three steps in detail. First, acknowledge that unrestrained anger is sin. What is anger? Anger is a God-given emotional response, usually related to a goal, value, or expectation. We all have experienced anger at some point in our life. Though it starts as a harmless feeling, it can quickly grow into something dangerous that's hard to control. And so the first step to taking control over our anger is to acknowledge our anger and restrain it. Is all anger sin? According to Paul, no. Anger in itself is not sin. Even God gets angry, and God created human beings with a capacity to get angry. There were times when Jesus himself was terribly and majestically angry, like the instance of him cleansing the temple, where he was furious at what the religious leaders were doing in God's temple, and he made a whip and chased them away. Or in the controversies with Pharisees and religious leaders, we see Jesus who was impressively angry to the extent of calling the religious leaders hypocrites and whitewashed tombs. In today's context, a person who does not know how to be shaken with anger over things evil is a wicked person. So Bible permits the right kind of anger. Only thing is that our anger should not give way to sin. And when does it give way to sin? When we allow our anger to control us instead of us controlling it. Thus, unrestrained, unreconciled, and unconfessed anger is sin. So, the first step in anger management is to ask ourselves, why am I angry? That's what God did when Cain was angry with his brother Abel. God asked Cain in Genesis chapter 4 verse 6, why are you angry? Asking ourselves that question, why am I angry, helps us to deal with our anger. we need to understand that there is a difference between sinful and legitimate anger. There is a difference between appropriate and inappropriate anger. The question, why am I angry, helps us to determine whether our anger is appropriate one or inappropriate one. There are several reasons why we could get angry. We may get angry if somebody offends us. We may get angry if someone falsely accuses us, if someone demeans us or disrespects us. Sometimes we may get angry when things are done without integrity, when there is injustice. We could also get angry because of wounded egos, selfishness, unforgiveness, bitterness, envy, hatred towards others, and wanting to have our own way. Therefore, we can be angry for the right reason and for the wrong reason as well. So, honestly analyze your anger to determine whether it is a righteous anger, a sinful anger, or a mixed one. The embarrassing truth is that when we analyze our anger, almost always we find that it is rooted in selfishness. We wanted things to be done our way, and when that did not happen, we get angry. If selfishness has any part in our anger, it is sinful. So, biblically, there are two kinds of anger. The first kind of anger is righteous anger. This is the kind of anger we have towards sin and evil that is in the world. Righteous anger is the kind of anger God has. When Jesus Christ looked around on the Pharisees with anger, he was at the same time grieved because of the hardening of their hearts. It is out of love Jesus expressed his anger. But there is a danger with this type of anger too when we humans try to practice it. As human beings, because we are sinful and selfish, righteous anger is very difficult, if not impossible. For humans, when we get angry, even if we feel that our anger is righteous anger, our anger usually turns into unrighteous anger. Paul was aware of this problem. That is why, though Paul permitted anger by saying, "Be angry but do not sin," in verse 26, what we notice is a few verses later, in verse 31, Paul told his readers to put aside all anger, to put away all kinds of anger. Because Paul knew that any anger, even righteous anger, can be disastrous if not handled properly. Since our anger usually turns into unrighteous anger, Paul immediately qualifies his permissive, be angry, by three negatives. One, do not sin, in verse 26. Two, do not let the sun go down on your anger, verse 26. And third, do not give opportunity to the devil, verse 27. So the second step that Paul prescribes is, do not let the sun go down on your anger. In other words, accept responsibility and take steps for timely reconciliation. Accept responsibility and take steps for timely reconciliation. Usually, we tend to justify our anger instead of accepting responsibility for it. Justifying anger and failing to reconcile can be destructive to our relationship with one another and our relationship with God. Paul says, do not let the sun go down on your anger. When the sun went down, a new day began for the Jews. Probably Paul is saying that we should not let anger spill over into the next day. However, we should not understand Paul so literally and take it for granted that we can be angry till sunset. If that is so, the people living in Greenland, Finland, and places near the poles will be in great advantage as they enjoy about 3 months of sunshine at a stretch. So, Paul's intention is not to wait till sunset. Paul's intention is to caution against nursing anger. Nursing one's anger to keep it warm magnifies grievance, makes reconciliation difficult, and destroys friendly relations. We need to resolve each day's anger by the end of the day itself. The biblical principle is never go to bed angry. Never go to bed angry. Do not postpone reconciliation, is what Paul intends to say. Reconciliation is not only important, it must also be done as immediately as possible. That is exactly what Jesus taught us in Matthew chapter 5 verse 23 and 24. Matthew chapter 5 verse 23 and 24. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go first be reconciled to your brother or sister and then come and offer your gift. Get rid of your anger first and then come and offer your sacrifices. Because biblically, unrestrained anger is equal to murder. In the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 21 and 22, Jesus said, to be angry with someone without a reason was equal to committing a murder. Someone said anger, A-N-G-E-R, is just one letter short of danger, D-A-N-G-E-R. It is true. Look at these biblical examples. In Genesis 4, we read that Cain murdered Abel because he was angry with his brother that God accepted Abel's offering and rejected Cain's. Cain's unrestrained anger led to hatred and ended in murder. Similarly, we read in Numbers 20 that Moses lost the privilege of leading the people of Israel into the promised land only because he was angry with the people of Israel for their murmurings and struck the rock twice instead of speaking to it. So anger can be costly. It can cost our ambitions. It can cost our friends, our family, our relationship with God, and it can cost even our inner peace. If you are sinned by angry, go to the person and humbly ask forgiveness for your wrong. If as husband and wife you have argued angrily in the presence of your children, call the family together and take the initiative by telling your children that you have sinned by your uncontrolled anger and inform them that you have already reconciled with your partner by asking forgiveness. Let them know that uncontrolled anger is a sin and one should please God by not getting angry in the future. As human beings, we may in our weakness get angry with others, but it is essential that we apologize if you are in the wrong. Forgive, set things right, and be reconciled before the day is over. By failing to reconcile, we are actually giving Satan a foothold in our lives. So Paul gives the third step in anger management, that is, confess your anger to God and do not give room for the devil. Confess your anger to God and give no room for the devil. We cannot hide our emotions from God, and God loves us regardless of what emotions we are feeling. The devil wants us to be too afraid to approach God when we are angry, and he prepares everything to use that opportunity to enter us and to destroy us. We must overcome this fear because the only way to break free from anger is to restore our relationship with God. Confessing our anger to God will keep us clean on the inside and be guilt-free. It may sound strange to talk to God when we feel angry, jealous, or hateful, but it's the only way to break free. So, as an important step towards anger management, let us confess our anger to God and invite Him into those dark areas of our life where we have hidden our anger and bitterness. Let us ask Him to shine His light on us and guide us on how to live free from the anger that is controlling us. If we depend only on our ability to handle anger, we are playing God and we may fail. But if we surrender to God, He will replace our anger pains with His perfect peace. The next time you are about to lose your temper, just stop, pray, ask God to deal with those surging emotions, discuss issues with people when you are calm, extend forgiveness, and forget the offense. This is the only way to handle anger. And God is always there to help us in this healing process. Amen.